Well, good morning. The ancient laws of the Old Testament remind me of mouthwash, believe it or not. You can use mouthwash to supplement your dental cleaning, but the mouthwash really doesn't clean your teeth. It may get rid of your bad breath, but mouthwash, if you're in a pinch and you need to go somewhere and you haven't brushed your teeth, you don't have a toothbrush, use a mouthwash at least so you don't smell disgusting. But mouthwash is not the same as fully brushing your teeth and practicing good oral hygiene. It's the same in the ancient laws of the Old Testament and what Moses tried to do when he wrote the book of Deuteronomy. It was with a nomadic people had left Egypt, who had no form of government. He tried desperately to put together some fair treatment of all peoples. And this is what we see as we read these laws that were created in Deuteronomy. And I know they seem archaic to some of us, and they'll almost seem unfair, but remember, it was a different day. These people had left 400 years of slavery and bondage in Egypt. They were wandering. They were about to enter a new land. They would have to conquer some wicked cities. And so God's trying to help them by speaking to Moses to create some semblance of laws and regulations for fair treatment of people. So let's go through these. We're in Deuteronomy 21 and 22. By the way, good morning. I'm Pastor Rini, Senior Pastor at Valley Christian Center. Welcome. I'm glad you're here at 747. If you're new to our program, we're going through the Bible in a year. All you got to do is go to our website at vccfresno.org, and download the Bible app, and you'll be able to go through the Bible with us in a year, because there's a Bible app that shows you our daily reading. So let's begin Deuteronomy 21. If in the land that the Lord your God has given you to possess someone is found slain, lying in an open country, and it is not known who killed him, then your elders and your judges shall come out, and they shall measure the distance of the surrounding cities, and the elders of the city that is nearest to the slain man shall take a heifer that has never been worked and that has not pulled a yoke. So what they're doing is, first of all, if someone is killed outside of the city and no one can claim that body, there's no relative to claim them, they wanted to have at least a decent burial for the individual and a decent sacrifice for whatever happened. So they would take a heifer out and they would break the neck of the heifer and they would sacrifice the heifer as a way of doing an atoning for what happened. So obviously the individual could have died by murder, by natural consequences. Either way, there was a system to say, whatever city this slain body is closest to, would you please make sure there's a proper atonement for this individual and a proper burial? That's kind of how they handled that. Now, marrying female captives, verse 10. This is one that I get lots of questions on, and I understand it. Let me explain it. When you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God gives them into your hand, and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you desire to take her to be your wife, and you bring her to your home, to your house, you shall shave her head and pare her nails. And she shall take off the clothes in which she was captured, and shall remain in your house and lament her father and her mother a full month. After that you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you no longer delight in her, you shall let her go where she wants, but you shall not sell her for money, nor shall you treat her as a slave, since you have humiliated her. So this is the fair treatment of the lands that they conquered. Why did they shave their heads? Why did they pare their nails? Why did they change the clothes? It was to give the individual a chance, first of all, to shed off all the signs of captivity, to eliminate any references to the idol worship of the other gods that they served, and to give them a fresh start. So the shaving of the head and the paring of the nails and the changing of the clothes says you are no longer a captive, you no longer serve that old ancient false god, but as your hair grows back, as your clothes are cleaned up, you are a new creation as one of the worshipers of the one true God. And then it was to tell the Israelites, listen, you don't get to treat people like slaves. You were once a slave. If something happens and it doesn't work out, you are not to humiliate this woman. You make sure that you don't just take her for your own pleasure and leave her abandoned. So even with captivity, there was this mourning period. They were allowed to mourn. By shaving their head and paring their nails and changing their clothes, they were getting a fresh start to be worshipers of the one true God. He talks about the inherited rights of the firstborn and how, in those days, because they died so young, they would marry many women. Most women died in childbirth. So he said if you married one woman that you didn't love and one woman that you loved, and the woman that you didn't love had the firstborn son, but you have a favorite, which is the woman you love's firstborn son, you don't get to leave your inheritance to your favorite. You leave it to the firstborn. You do not dishonor the laws of the Lord, because the firstborn son gets the double portion. The firstborn son, whether you love the wife or not, is irrelevant. There's a responsibility to preserve the integrity of God's covenant agreement of marriage. Now today, obviously, we don't believe in multiple marriages, but in those days, just for the survival of individuals, the average woman would die in her 30s from childbirth. Now, a rebellious son, again, these are harsh corporate capital punishment laws. They had to try to purge this ongoing spirit of anarchy as they wandered in the wilderness, as they moved toward their promised land. There was always a spirit of anarchy, people not wanting to fall under the authority of the leaders. And basically, he says, if you have a son that's a glutton and a drunkard, and that son will not repent, and the son will not change, and the son brings you dishonor, the solution is to go before the elders. And if the elders can't change him, he's stoned to death. Pretty serious corporal punishment for this. But again, this is a wandering nomadic tribe of people searching for their homeland without any laws at all. So again, if they cannot, that son who is a drunkard and a glutton and does not respect the authority of his elders, they're fearful they will lead them to anarchy, so that individual is removed. The next one is a messianic reference that is actually quoted in the New Testament about that a man hanged on a tree is a curse. Verse 22, if a man has committed a crime punishable by death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain on the tree, but you shall bury him the same day, for a hanged man is cursed by God. You shall not defile your land that the Lord your God is giving you for inheritance. Those of you who remember the gospel story, remember that Jesus, who was hung on the tree, had to be taken down before nightfall. It was a dishonorable thing from Deuteronomy to have even a criminal hang on a tree at night. So this was a reference of what would happen to the Messiah as the Messiah was hung on a tree or on a cross. There were various Good Samaritan laws. Of course, there were not any Samaritans at that time, but there were Good Samaritan laws. And talking about your neighbor's ox, get it back to your neighbor. There was a dress code for men and for women. They even had wildlife preservation. Those of you who are in fish and game would appreciate this. Verse 6 in the next chapter, if you come across a bird's nest in any tree on the ground, or young ones or eggs, and the mother sitting on the young one or on the eggs, you shall not take the mother or with the young. You shall let the mother go, but the young you may take for yourself, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long. So literally, it is preserving the wildlife around them. So we are not at odds with those who believe in the preservation of wildlife. It's thousands of years ago, Moses, in the book of Deuteronomy, prepared us for fair treatment of animals, how to preserve the strong wildlife around us. There's even an OSHA safety one. This one's hilarious, by the way, because being in construction for many years, that I know this is what OSHA has created. Let me read it to you and tell you why. It says, when you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, that you may not bring the guilt of blood upon your house if anyone falls from it. When you look around at houses today as they're being built, the construction is exploding, especially in the Central Valley. You'll notice they build this temporary parapet around the edges of the house when the framers are there so they do not fall and get injured. So OSHA is actually applied an ancient, thousands of years old, an ancient law created by Moses to protect people. I love that. Also, you cannot have an ox and a donkey plowing side by side. Why is that? An ox is considered a clean animal. A donkey is an unclean animal. You cannot have a clean and an unclean animal laboring side by side, because you cannot have righteousness with wickedness. See, a lot of these rules are all about trying to provide a scenario where people walk in righteousness, not wickedness. So that's why all these rules are like this. So an ox is a clean animal, a donkey is considered an unclean animal. They cannot labor together. Fun stuff. This one, you shall not wear the cloth of wool and linen mixed together. Why is that? Well, the robes worn by the priests had linen undergarments and wool overgarments, and it was almost like you'd be impersonating the uniform of a priest, and that was against the law. Exactly the same today, by the way, thousands of years later. You can get arrested and fined for impersonating a police officer, or impersonating a fireman, or impersonating someone in the military. If you wear the uniform of someone and you don't carry that title, you can be persecuted. It's exactly the same back then. Don't falsely dress as a priest. Then there was laws of sexual immorality and marriage, protecting women, protecting virginity of women, the proof of virginity, and false accusations. All of this was done to try to create some semblance of fairness between the genders, between men and women. Women could not own property, but men could. And so in order to protect the women, who really, all their provision came from marriage, first from their father's house before they were married, and then were married, it came from their husbands. They didn't own property. So they had to protect the women from false accusation, from a man who just gets tired of her and finds another woman that he wants to be sexually active with. All of these that you read are to protect the integrity of both the man, but mostly the woman, including fornication, adultery, things like this. Whether or not she cries out for help. And it says at the end, verse 30, I want to read verse 30. A man shall not take his father's wife, so that he does not uncover his father's nakedness. Again, to uncover a father's nakedness means to have sexual relationships with his wife, which many times is the stepmother of the child, because women died so often, the husband had to keep marrying new women who would die in childbirth. And so it was to protect the father's relationship with his wife from stepchildren. And so when it says to protect, not uncover the father's nakedness, it's usually almost always, not always, but almost always talking about someone having intimate relationships with his wife. So what do you think? Obviously, there's a lot of ancient rules that we have improved upon, but this is the best that Moses could do, trying to develop an early form of government in the middle of the wilderness. Hey, if you like this video, please hit like. It's right there. See it? Hit the like button. Make sure you keep hitting the like button. It helps us invite more people to our morning inspiration. Invite a friend, subscribe, hit the little bell which notifies you of upcoming events. And as always, share this with your friends and family so we can continue to infuse the power and presence of God and the Holy Spirit by reading His Word daily. I love you all. Have a great, incredible day. See you tomorrow morning at what time? That's right, 7:47. Have a great day.